There is a name on more than 1 billion vehicles. A name so embedded in American culture that it has been in movies and country songs and presidential speeches, and that name was almost erased. Not once, not twice. 3 times, Chevrolet should have died. 3 times, it didn't. This is the story of how. Most people think they know the Chevrolet story. They don't. Stick around till the end. And while you're watching, subscribe and let me know in the comment section what you know about this story. But first, you need to understand the man behind the name, because without him, none of this exists. And his story is the most tragic part of all. His name was Louis Chevrolet, and he never got to keep it. Louis was born in Switzerland on Christmas Day, 1878. He came to North America in 1900, first to Montreal, then to New York City the following year, with grease under his fingernails and speed in his blood. By 1905, in his very first American race, he got behind the wheel of a Fiat at a track in the Bronx, defeated Barney Oldfield, the most famous racing driver in the country, and set a timed mile record that turned heads across the entire industry. He later drove for Buick. He won races. He became famous. And through Buick, he fell in with a man named William C. Durant, a man who had founded General Motors in 1908 and then lost it. Durant had been forced out of General Motors in 1910 by bankers who did not trust him. He had spent recklessly, acquired wildly, and overextended the company he had built. The bankers took control. Durant was out. But here is what nobody tells you. Durant was not trying to start a car company when he teamed up with Louis Chevrolet. He was trying to get General Motors back. On November 3, 1911, the two men co-founded the Chevrolet Motor Car Company in Detroit. Louis brought the famous name, the face of speed and excellence. Durant brought something else entirely, a plan. While Louis Chevrolet believed he was building a car company, Durant was playing a longer game. He still owned a significant portion of General Motors stock from his time running the company. As Chevrolet's cars sold well and profits grew, Durant used every dollar to quietly buy more General Motors shares. More, and more, and more. Then came the move that changed American business history. Durant offered General Motors shareholders a trade they could not resist. Hand over 1 share of General Motors stock, and he would give you 5 shares of Chevrolet in return. General Motors stock was expensive, but Chevrolet was growing fast, and 5 shares for 1 was an extraordinary offer. By May 2, 1918, just 7 years after Chevrolet was founded, Durant walked back into General Motors as its controlling shareholder. The man the bankers had thrown out had used a car company as a financial weapon. He had pulled off what might be the most audacious corporate reversal in American history. He did not buy General Motors back. He traded Chevrolet for it. And in 1918, Chevrolet, the company, the brand, everything, was folded into General Motors. Now here is the tragedy hiding inside that triumph. Louis Chevrolet had sold his shares years earlier in 1915. He and Durant had clashed over direction. Louis wanted performance cars. Durant wanted affordable ones. Louis walked away. He got nothing from the General Motors deal. Not a dollar, not a seat at the table, not even an acknowledgement. The man whose name had just been used to recapture one of the largest companies in the world went on to race, to build other ventures, and eventually came back to Detroit not as a founder, not as an executive, but as a mechanic, working in the factories, stamping out cars with his name on the hood. He died in 1941 at 62 years old, broke. But the name survived. and it was about to face its second crisis. January 1953. New York City. General Motors unveiled something at their annual Motorama show that America had never seen before. Low, sleek, white. A fiberglass body, the first mass-produced car ever built with one. Just 2 seats, named after the small convoy escort vessels of World War II, the workhorses of the Battle of the Atlantic. The Corvette. The crowd reaction was immediate. People pushed toward the rotating platform. Dealers across the country received calls from customers demanding to order a car that was technically still just a show model. General Motors executives, surprised by the intensity, approved production later that year. On June 30th, 1953, the first production Corvette rolled out of a small facility in Flint, Michigan. Just 300 were built that year, virtually by hand. Every single one was polo white with a red interior and a black canvas top. They sold immediately. But then came 1954. General Motors ramped up production to 3,640 cars, and they sat there. The Corvette, for all its beauty, was underpowered. A 6-cylinder engine in a car that looked like it should eat European sports cars for breakfast. Buyers were underwhelmed. The press was polite but unenthusiastic. Inside General Motors, executives began having the conversation nobody wanted to have. Kill it. The Corvette, America's first true sports car, was going to be canceled. The numbers didn't work. The product didn't deliver. It had been a beautiful idea that hadn't translated into a compelling car. And then Ford made an announcement. Ford was launching the Thunderbird, a 2-seat sports car aimed directly at the same market. General Motors didn't just keep the Corvette, they rebuilt it. In 1955, a V8 engine arrived. Performance climbed sharply, sales followed, and then, through the influence of engineer Zora Arkus Duntov, the man who understood what the Corvette was supposed to be, it became genuinely fast, genuinely thrilling. By 1963, the Corvette Stingray had arrived, arguably one of the most beautiful American cars ever designed. The car the United States House of Representatives would later officially call in 2008 the most widely respected production sports car in United States history. And then Ford did something that changed everything again. In 1964, the Mustang arrived. Stylish, affordable, fast, aimed straight at young America. It sold over 400,000 units in its first year. It wasn't just a car, it was a cultural event. Chevrolet had no answer. For 2 years, engineers worked in relative secrecy on a response. The internal mission was not subtle. When reporters asked Chevrolet's general manager, Pete Estes, what a Camaro was, his reply became legendary. A small, vicious animal that eats Mustangs. The Camaro launched for the 1967 model year. Big block Vive 8 options. High-performance trims, the Z28 and the SS became mythology almost immediately. What followed was one of the great automotive rivalries in history, not between companies, between cars. Every year brought new horsepower numbers, new displacement figures, a relentless escalation of performance that made American roads feel like a permanent drag strip. The 1973 oil crisis hit the American auto industry like a freight train. Fuel efficiency replaced horsepower as the only number that mattered. Emissions regulations arrived. Insurance companies cracked down. The muscle car era didn't end with a victory lap. It ended with a quiet, grinding retreat. By the mid-2000s, General Motors was in serious trouble. The company that had once seemed permanently embedded in American life had been slow to respond to foreign competition, slow to adapt to changing tastes, and had accumulated crushing debt and labor costs over decades. In 2008, the global financial crisis pushed it to the edge. General Motors filed for bankruptcy, reporting roughly $173 billion in debt. The company was burning through cash it did not have. Without intervention, it would not survive. The United States government stepped in. Under the Troubled Asset Relief Program, General Motors received approximately $50 billion in federal assistance. It was a decision that divided the country. Some called it a rescue. Others called it a reward for failure. In June 2009, General Motors, 101 years old, once the largest company in the world, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And inside that bankruptcy, the most consequential decision in Chevrolet's history was being made. The new GM that would emerge from bankruptcy had to be leaner. When the dust settled, just 4 divisions remained: Buick, Cadillac, GMO, and Chevrolet, the brand born from a corporate scheme, the brand that had almost been canceled before it mattered, the brand that had survived oil crises and foreign competition and its own parent company's collapse. Chevrolet was chosen as the volume leader of a rebuilt empire. The brand the new GM would bet its survival on. GM emerged from bankruptcy in just 40 days. And the comeback was faster than almost anyone predicted. By 2010, GM posted its first full-year profit since 2004, $4.7 billion. In November 2010, the company returned to the stock market in one of the largest initial public offerings in United States history. The following year, GM reclaimed its title as the world's largest automaker. Was Chevrolet meant to survive? By every measure, no. It was created not to build cars, but to wage a corporate war. Its most iconic model nearly got canceled before it found its purpose, and its parent company went bankrupt in what looked for a moment like the final chapter of a very American story. And yet, here is a brand that has outlasted the man who named it, the man who weaponized it, the era that defined it, and the bankruptcy that should have buried it. And that's it for today. Thanks for watching. If this story surprised you, drop a comment below. I want to know which part hit different. YouTube thinks you'll like this video. I'd trust them on this one. See you there.